All right, we will get started. Um, Hello, everyone. My name is Ann Trendor. I'm one of the high school counselors at the high school. I thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our webinar is all about the financial aid process, what it is, how it works, and what you need to know as you start planning for college. We're lucky tonight to have Lisa Ware, Associate Director of Financial Aid at Arcata University. She is here to walk us through everything and share her expertise. As Lisa presents, please feel free to drop any questions in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on them and I'll do my best to answer them as they come through. And if you can't stay until the end, please know that the session is being recorded so you can watch it later whenever it's convenient. So I guess we will get started. Please join
Good
me in
evening.
welcoming Lisa.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Anne. Thank you for inviting me back for another year.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm sure everyone that's looking at the first slide here says, Anne said associate and it says assistant. That's my typo. I was newly promoted and just ignored the first slide and forgot to update it. So forgive me, we all make mistakes. A little bit of my background. Worked at Chestnut Hill College for a few years, where then I left and worked at LaSalle University for 22 years. And I currently work at Arcadia University, and I have been here for 3 years. What I'm going to do tonight is just go over some of the financial aid basics, and hopefully we'll answer some of your questions that will get you started. Throughout the presentations, I'll have a few slides that will be a little bit of an icebreaker, and just a little bit of humor, and I hope you get it. I'm actually going to start off with one of them. So this is what I like to start off with, and know that some parents may feel like this, and we're trying not to help you feel so sad that when your kid goes off to college, that the all thing you have left is a t-shirt and a tuition bill. We hope that it's a little bit more pleasing and that have a good experience. So again, like I said, the introduction today will just be a basic financial aid 101. We're going to talk about what is financial aid. We're going to talk about sources of aid. We're going to give you some new updates based on the big, beautiful bill. There's still things that are not in place, but could be changing. So we're going to go over, hit some of those highlights. We're going to talk about the application process, give you a few little tips and tricks, give you some financing options, and then hopefully some helpful websites. So with that said, what is financial aid? So financial aid is funds to assist students and their families to help them through post-secondary education. And how that is broken down is you have when you fill out your FAFSA, and we'll go over that a few slides down, but it's basically grants, and that's going to be based on your household income. And we know that that changes every year, but your grants will be your federal grants, your state grants, and sometimes institutional grants. You'll have your scholarships, and that's typically the scholarships that are offered to this student when they first enter college. So when they send out that application, they're going to be offered an award, and that's what's called your scholarships. You also will have your outside scholarships, and you can start searching for outside scholarships. There's literally scholarships for everything that you can think of. Your hair color, your eye color, if you're right-handed, left-handed, if you ride a horse, if you are a bird watcher. There's literally scholarships for everything. And some of those sources is various organizations, churches. Your employer may have scholarships. Some of the stores that you shop at, your Kohl's, your Targets, your supermarkets, your Giants, and so forth, they may have scholarships. You just have to search their websites. Sometimes your high school gives a scholarship. A lot of your banking institutions have scholarships. Some of them are sweepstakes, some of them are essays. So I'm going to give you some of those websites at the end of the presentation. You'll also have your loans. You'll have your federal direct loans, and you'll also have your private loans, and we'll discuss about that as well. So the difference between your merit-based aid and your need-based aid. As I said previously, your merit-based aid is the scholarship that your student will receive once they enter put their application into whatever university or college that they're looking at. Most of the time, they will offer them some type of breakdown of awards, and that scholarship that they merit-based aid that they receive typically stays with them the entire 4 years that they're there. It's normally renewable and it's based on their academics. So they would keep that as long as they stay within their academic setting, whatever that institution's academic GPA progress would be. Your need-based aid is coming from when you fill out your FAFSA. That is something that you would have to do each year, and that is based on your income taxes. And what is done now is that it's based on 2 years prior. So what they call that is prior year. So it will be 2 years prior your income tax would be. So we know that using your income taxes, it is going to change each year. That's why you have to fill out your FAFSA each year. So your income's going to change and your need-based aid is going to change as well. Again, that is your federal grant, your state grant, and then also the institution tries to give you some of their institutional funds as well. Employment at the universities or colleges. It can include work study, which I highly recommend because it allows the student to earn a little bit of extra money and there to spend on outside items. That means going to hang out with their friends. That means ordering a pizza. It means stopping at Target or Walmart. And I always look at it, it's less money out of the parents' pocket for all those little incidentals the student is actually earning. Work study jobs on campus is normally better than we're having them work outside of campus because whatever department they work for works around their academic schedule. So they won't have to attend work, say, during class scheduling, or if they are doing sports. Whatever department they work for will work around their academic schedule. So that's a good thing. They'll give the students some leeway. And if their student is not eligible for federal work study, there are typically institutional budget jobs that the student can apply for as well. So they just would have to talk to the office that handles the student employment and ask them how do they apply for jobs, or the financial aid office. Now, your federal direct loans, again, will be loans that's in the student's name. It also comes from the information from the FAFSA, and it tells us what type of loan that they're eligible for. There's no credit check involved, and it's normally a variable fixed rate. The interest rate changes every July each year. The repayment process typically starts 6 months after graduation. And sometimes if the student goes into grad school right after undergrad, they can get a deferment. So we're going to break down the difference between subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans, along with parents' loans. So the federal direct subsidized loan is basically a loan that's in the student's name, and the interest is accrued by the government while the student is in school. So that means the student is not being billed any interest while they're in school. The unsubsidized loan is that the interest is billed to the student while they're in school, and it's simply billed on a quarterly basis. Typically, it's maybe about $25 every quarter. If possible, I do highly recommend that the student pays the interest while they're in school, and you as a guardian or parent wish to assist, you can do so, but it keeps it from accruing and every 6 months and actually turning almost into a credit card that by the time the student graduates, they have a high interest bill. As again, payments on the federal direct and the federal direct loans are deferred until 6 months after graduation as an undergrad. If they do choose to go into grad school right afterwards, they would have to get what is called a deferment. Again, as I mentioned, this interest rate is a variable fixed interest rate. It changes each year in July. Now, the Parent Plus loan is a loan that parents take out to assist the students in their final cost billing. That loan is in the parent's name. It is a credit check. You do have to have a credit check. If you do not pass the credit check, they have a way that you can get an addendum and get a cosigner on top of that. So this is called an endorser. The payments do begin 60 days after the second disbursement. So the second disbursement is typically in January. So 60 days after that is when the Parent Plus loan does start the repayment. You, however, can get a deferment, and you would have to speak to the lender regarding that. The repayment process is approximately 10 years. This is what the loan limits and the aggregates look like once the students are in school. So as an undergraduate student, and you can see the breakdown, if they first start their freshman year from 0 to 26 credits, the max subsidized is 3,500. They're offered an unsubsidized loan of 2,000 for a total of 5,500 for the year. As their credits increase to a sophomore and junior level and senior level, the subsidized increases by 1,000. The unsub stays the same. Now, however, if the student is independent, or if the parent applies for a PLUS loan and is denied and they do not get an endorser, you can see that they are offered an additional $4,000 in the unsubsidized loan in the bottom grid. Their subsidized stays the same, but they can get the unsubsidized loan with a maximum of 9,500 in the freshman year, 10,005 in the sophomore to junior year, and then above the junior to senior year, a 12,500. Now, this is what we kind of put together as far as the cost of attendance. The cost of attendance is to maximize allow financial aid to the student. So some of the figures are estimated. They're not always actual, but we try to make the cost of attendance as large as possible to get you the maximized aid. So the one thing that is current is the tuition and fees. Also the housing and food expenses are exactly what they are. Housing and food, books and materials. Some of that is estimated because some students use books, they rent books, and so forth. So the book part is estimated. Transportation is also estimated. Transportation can be to and from school. Transportation can be going out afterwards. So it's just kind of an estimated figure. And then miscellaneous personal expenses. So all that is put together as your cost of attendance. And then from your cost of attendance, what is done is to subtract what you get the number from your FAFSA, and then it tells us approximately how much aid we can add to, and approximately how much out-of-pocket costs for the parent. So this is a time to just take a sip of water, sip of coffee. And we're going to go through the process of applying for financial aid. And this is to allow you to get some money. So hopefully you like the little icebreaker there. So the application process. So each year you're going to fill out the FAFSA form. And this year, and from the last 2 years, is actually opened up on time, which is October 1st. And what you can do is go out to studentaid.gov to complete your FAFSA. The first thing you do need to complete is a FAFSA ID. And we're going to talk about that in the next slide or so. Also, the application process, you're going to be filling out the state grant, which people know it as FIA. And right now, you want to make sure that you are mindful of FIA's deadline. FIA's deadline is May 1st. That's a hard deadline. It is subject to change only through FIA, but to be considered, just make sure that you have your paperwork and anything needed by May 1st. Also, FIA is going to be making some changes again. So once you fill out your FAFSA, and it's going to direct you to fill out your application for the state grant, you'll be getting an email from FIA. And because they're changing system, it's either going to be, it should come from no reply at grantusfia.org. At that time, you need to go in, and the student needs to go in, and they need to complete a state grant application. And because it's a state grant, they're going to ask for specific information to verify who they are. And then that one should only have to do it one time unless they switch systems again. So Fingers crossed that they don't. So this is some of the new things for 2026. When you're completing a FAFSA, the student has to file first. So the student will go in and start the FAFSA process to invite the guardian or parent or a contributor. They're all the same names. They're the same, different names for the same person. You're going to see contributor as the parent or the guardian. The student will put in the email address. Last year, the student had to put in the parent's social security or guardian's social security number. They've changed it. You just need to put in the email address. It will go to the contributor. They will enter a code and then they can complete their part. I know a lot of parents and guardians will want to start the process for the student and complete the whole thing for themselves because they think that the student will mess it up or they don't have the time. It's not going to work. It's going to cause you a whole lot of headaches. If you want, the best thing to do is to sit down and do it together, have the student start it, and then the parent get the invitation and then complete their process. The other thing new that's on the FAFSA is they're bringing back the exemption for the farm and small business ownership. They had taken that off to calculate the SAI, but now they have put it back. One of the new things is the FAFSA ID. And that FAFSA ID is basically your username and your password, which will be your electronic signature throughout your process of filling out the FAFSA and moving forward for the 4 years that your student is in college. It was taking 3 to 5 days to process. They've shortened it. Now you're getting that ID instantly. So you want to make sure that you keep that in a safe place. The Parent Plus loan, the changes coming July 1 of 2026. The annual loan limit is $20,000 per dependent student with an aggregate max loan amount of $65,000. So depending on what type of institution your child will be attending, that may be a problem and it may not be a problem. So you may have to think of some alternative ways to finance. Right now, there is no cap on how much the parent can borrow. So, who's considered a contributor? That's always the big question. I would say that once you do start the FAFSA, make sure that you do not skip the videos because they will have a video on the student side and on the parent side to talk about who is considered a contributor. So here is some outlines. So if the parents are married and they do not file separate, they're not separated and they file joint taxes, only one parent is required to be a contributor. If the parents are married, not separated, they didn't file taxes together, so both parents would have to do the contributor. If the parents are living together, not married, and they haven't filed taxes, then they both would need to do the contributor. So as you can see, depending on your status, if you're divorced, the basic thing is if you file together and you are married and you file them jointly, that's the straight way. If anything else, if you had divorce at some point, I'm sorry, it's blocking my direction. If you're divorced, separated, unmarried, and you're not living together, but you file taxes together, you would have to put that information in there. You can put that you are divorced, you filed jointly, and then the best thing to do is either to contact the institution that you're committed to make any changes, but you will be able to self-post your income within there as a contributor. That is always the biggest question. So again, make sure you do the tutorial. Also, studentaid.gov has a hotline. They would be happy to answer any questions. I just had a parent and a student in my office, and we went through their FAFSA because she indicated that they were divorced, but they filed jointly and somewhere else she put separated. So it was a big thing trying to get that all together. And I think they was in my office for about an hour till we finally got it all straightened out. But it can be done. All right, this is talking about your FAFSA ID, which is basically your electronic signature to your FAFSA. The main thing here is you want to make sure when you're filling this out that you follow the name that's exactly on your Social Security card. There is no nicknames. If your name is hyphenated, if you are married and you haven't changed your Social Security card, whatever is on that Social Security card, that's the name that you want to put in when you're filling out your FSA ID. Again, that is your electronic signature. If you put anything else, you will cause a lot of problems. If you go out to studentaid.gov/FSA ID, create an account. It's very simple. Just a few questions. Like I said, it's instant now. Before it was 3 to 5 days. So that's the start to get your FAFSA going. Again, I know I'm repeating myself, but here's some tricks and tips. The main one is there's a federal student aid estimator, and you can go out to, again, studentaid.gov/aid estimator. There's also one on Arcadia's website. And basically you can do is kind of put in your information and see what your SAI may be, and it kind of gives you an estimate of what you may be eligible for. The other way you can look at is if you can take your Pell Award, the maximum current award right now, which is $7,395. When you get your FAFSA SAI, you can subtract that, and it can kind of give you an idea of what you may be eligible for as far as the federal grant, the federal Pell Grant. For the state grant, you want to be mindful of their deadline date. You want to make sure that once you do complete that application for the FAFSA, that you're going to look for the email from the state grant. Keep checking your emails, keep checking your spam, because it's easy to be missed. We are still tracking students down to complete their information because they missed the email. The other thing you want to do is you want to compare apples to apples and not oranges to oranges. And what we mean by that is that you don't want to compare you don't want to compare tuition of a state institution to a private institution. There's no comparison. Your state schools are always, as far as tuition, is always going to be lower. You want to compare your out-of-pocket costs and not necessarily your awards. And we say that because the awards can add up to be the same. They're just broken down differently. So the names may be different, and you may say 2 or 3 awards. It seems like there's like $20,000 for one school based on the name, and only 2 or 3,000 in the other school. But if you add it all up, take away the names and add up all the awards, most likely they come out to be the same dollar amount. So you want to actually check the out-of-pocket costs versus the award costs, because they will hide the different names. Plus, you need to look out for, if you're getting outside scholarships, you want to check with the institution that if you get outside scholarships, if you're going to take away institutional grants. So for example, if you get an outside scholarship for $2,000, that may drop your institutional grant by $2,000. So you're not really gaining any money. So you want to check into that as well. Here are some important websites to look at for some outside scholarships. Also for the studentaid.gov to start your FAFSA, to also get your SAID. You want to look at if you want to do an estimator, you have your estimator here. These are some outside scholarship websites that you can search for. Again, the FIA.org. Right now it's FIA.org. It's going to switch to Grant Us at FIA.org. So keep an eye out for any emails coming from there. And this is a final look at if once everything and you still have some out-of-pocket costs, and say you do not want to do the plus loan, some other financial alternatives. It's alternative loans from various institutions you can look into. Some of those are, everyone knows Sallie Mae. There's SoFi, there's Abe's, there's College Avenue. There's so many. There's Monogram. There's so many. Basically, what it is an alternative loan is a loan within the student's name with the parent as the co-signer or another family member as a co-signer. They both have to do a credit check. The interest rates do vary. The repayment options and incentives do vary. I do recommend people to do their homework on this because each institution has different interest rates. Each institution has different repayment options and incentives. Some of the incentives is if you do 6 months payments on time, they drop the cosigner. If you sign up for automatic repayments, they drop a percentage point of interest after a certain period of time. You can do a $25 interest payment while in school. You can do deferment. You can do part. There's so many options out there. So really do your homework if you're going to be doing an alternative loan. And right now the interest rates are really dropping. So as I come to a close and open up for questions, just be mindful that your financial aid office tries to help you get money and all the money is taken away for tuition through the bursar's office. So again, I want to thank the Cheltenham team for inviting me to do a financial aid night. And I'm going to open it up if you have any questions, Ann.
There is a question here. It's, do we need to apply for FIA separately, or once we fill out the FAFSA, we will get the email from FIA?
So once you fill out the FAFSA, it'll should direct you over to complete your state grant process. However, FIA, as for the first year, do require additional information, but they will send that to you because they're still updating their system. When they send that email, what they're pretty much is looking for, like high school information. It's just like opening up it's just you put in your information as far as your name, your address, so forth. They already have your income information from the FAFSA. They're just verifying high school form. And then you'll have an application for them moving forward.
Okay.
But you do not need to go to their website unless there's some issues after, but first wait for their email.
Can you, so a lot of students, Lisa, will be attending school outside of Pennsylvania. Can you address how that, how attending outside Pennsylvania, school outside Pennsylvania, how FIA will impact that, the school attendance? Or the money, how that will impact if the student goes out of Pennsylvania?
Depending on what state they're attending, FIA will not travel. There's a small handful of states, what they call the surrounding areas. So it will reach out to Delaware, some parts of Maryland, I believe West Virginia. I know their loans are going out to Ohio and some parts of New York. I would have to get clarification if the grant itself would reach out to Ohio. But outside of that, the state grant will not travel with you. So if you're going to school in North Carolina, in the Carolinas, somewhere in the Midwest, if you're going to Virginia, Washington State, Washington, D.C., it will not travel with you.
Okay, thank you. So there were two questions, and I think we've answered them both at this point. Feel free to, okay, so here's another one. Beyond filling out FAFSA and FIA, do most scholarships have deadlines similar to college application deadlines? In other words, do we need to work on getting scholarships at the same time as working on applications, or can they be deferred a bit to ease the intensity of this season?
I would actually just start searching now. Some of the deadlines will be well into next year. There are some that are sweepstake based that are monthly. So most of your lending institutions, say Sallie Mae, Citizens, SoFi, PNC, they are all sweepstakes, and they can be for high school and grad and students that are currently in college. And they require monthly, but they are not essay based. So it's pretty much filling out an application. What I would recommend with something that's not for when you're doing scholarship search is set up a separate email because you're going to get product. You're going to get emails unless they have a box to say, don't send me your information, but they're going to send you, try to solicit your business. What you really want to do is you want to enter the sweepstakes to get the scholarships. As far as organizations, you can search to see what the deadlines, and a lot of them, the deadlines won't be until sometime next year. So you can give yourself a break in between. Also, when you're filling out your FAFSA, the one thing you have up to 20 schools that you can add on there now.
Okay. Next question we have is, are there considerations if you have two students going to school at the same time?
That will be up to the institutional. So at Arcadia, we have what's called the sibling scholarship. So if we have two students at the same time, one will get the sibling scholarship. Some institutions have that. If it's something on FAFSA, they kind of took away household size and the number in college. They do ask for that, but it's not always factored in.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, do you recommend looking for scholarships way in advance or when junior or senior?
They are going to change. You can start looking now to see what's out there and see what criteria they're looking for. But again, there's so many scholarships, there's billions of dollars that go untapped. So you can start making a list of things that you want to look at, but just keep in mind you may be a junior now, and what's a scholarship now may not be a scholarship next year. But some of the different things that you don't think about to look for scholarships is, for example, Taco Bell has one, Duct Tape has one. So you can look to see what their criteria are and start searching on your downtime, keep a track, and you'll know what to look for next year.
Okay, thank you. Next question, would it be helpful if the parent, unmarried, with lesser income is the contributor? Would more funds be given in grants?
Not necessarily, well, again, that becomes tricky because the contributor is not necessarily based on parent with the less income. It's the parent that the student lives with the most. So that's why I recommend if you go through that tutorial, if you're separated and you have to indicate which parent lives with the most and contributes to the student the most.
Please feel free to put any questions that you may have so we can answer them for you. We'll give it several more minutes. I hope you guys are leaving with some great tips tonight and a little more confidence about tackling the financial aid process. Please keep in mind that we will host a college, the FAFSA completion, the actual application night. That is November the 19th. We will be hosting that in the library at the high school. So if you have questions about your actual application and how to get started, or if you've gotten started and have questions about the actual process of your application, please come join us. It is November the 19th at 6:30. Okay, question. I believe the recording will be available within the next 24 hours. And let's see what are colleges costing annually now? State schools, just an estimate.
State schools, I honestly, I can't speak to state schools. I've not looked at the tuitions. Private schools are running in the 60s, state schools probably somewhere in the 40s. However, based on the new law, if you're looking at Pennsylvania school, the new law is that everything is supposed to be on the website as far as tuition and fees and a breakdown of the last couple of years. So I would recommend whatever schools that you're looking at to go on their website. They are required, as far as the state of Pennsylvania, they are required to post that information. It's called the Act 69. They're required to post that information if you're looking out of state, if you're looking out of state, you're going to compare the out-of-state costs. Some schools out of state have an in-state cost and an out-of-state cost. So you want to look at that.
Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight, everyone. A huge thank you to Lisa Ware for such an informative and engaging presentation. Please remember, you are not alone in this process. Reach out if you have any questions. If you have questions that will come up later, please reach out. We are happy and we are here to help. Have a good night, everyone. Oh, wait a minute. There is a question here. Should we wait to apply for the FSAID or can we do it now for a student graduating in 27 next year?
Oh, they're a junior this year.
Yes,
I will wait.
I agree.
What I would do right now, I would just start looking at schools, doing some open houses, doing virtual tours if they have it on the website, checking to make sure they have the major that the student is looking for, what's in the surrounding area, the tuition costs, the room and board costs. Also, just keep in mind that the majority of institutions will increase in their costs 3 to 5% each year. So let's start looking at that.
Does anyone else have any questions? Well, thank you for joining us. Have a great night.
Have a good night.